It's here, conference championship weekend, and on this episode of Worst to First, Matt and I will be previewing the AFC Championship, the NFC Championship game. To me, the four best teams in all of football made it, and in some years it just doesn't work out that way. You get thrown a knuckleball before you know it. Blake Bortles is sitting in the Final Four. That season was weird. You had Bortles and Case Keenum. And Foles, of course, was going on his miracle run. Doesn't always get you where you expect or hope the league to go. This year, Matt, we got the best four teams. Do you see it that way? Or, I don't know, maybe you're a guy who feels like the Bills slipped up.
Yeah, I think that's the only argument you could actually make is if you get the prime Bills, they could belong in that fourth spot. And, a lot of people aren't going to make that argument. A lot of people are high on the Bengals. People have the Bengals. A lot of people are saying they're the best team. And, the people could make that argument, I guess, the Chiefs, too, that they could be interchangeable with the Bills, had things broken a little bit differently. Personally, right now, at this very moment, yes, the four best teams are in it. Normally, at the beginning of the season, I don't know, I probably would have penciled the Bills in at this spot. But, just the way things were trending for them, injuries, bad luck breaks, and just the way that they were trending as a team in general, maybe they peaked a little too early. So, yeah, I would say four best teams. What do you got? What do you think?
Definitely the best four. Now, what I was noticing today was kind of strange. I'm sure someone more familiar with the process could explain it away for me. But as we're going to get into later, right now the Bengals are favored to win the AFC Championship game by 1.5. Therefore, they are viewed as more likely to advance to the Super Bowl than the Chiefs. And yet, if you go with a Super Bowl winner prop, right now Kansas City's tied for first in most likely odds with the Eagles. So I thought that was kind of odd that you can be less likely to win the semifinal game, but more likely than the Bengals to win the actual Super Bowl. But what that does tell me, in my very limited gambling expertise, is the guys who are making these odds, guys and gals making these odds or making big bets, they believe in the Chiefs more. It's this betting public that is all on the Bengals right now, buying that recency stuff. And, hey, maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. We'll see. But, yeah, I ultimately think these are the best four teams. Pretty healthy for the most part. Everybody's got some guys banged up, but there aren't a lot of dudes who just aren't going to suit up Sunday. So that's good. And, I think it's important to point out to our listeners, we, as of right now, knocking on wood, as God forbid something crazy happens, or we just decide, but as of right now, we are going to be in Kansas City. So, Chiefs Kingdom, I don't know. You're probably not going to recognize us, but if you do and you want to talk shop and try to brave the 19, 18, 20 degree weather, maybe kill some time, we'll be there. And that means that watching the NFC Championship might be a little bit of a challenge. Nonetheless, it's very exciting. And right now, they've got the Eagles favored by 2.5 points. This according to DraftKings Sportsbook. The over-under is 46. I feel like that line is fair for the home team. No question. I don't really see that one being influenced a whole lot by the betting public like the other one. But, just general thoughts right off the beginning, Matt. Are you noticing anything in the headlines so far? We're early in the week. It's only practices haven't even begun, but I don't know. I feel like this one hasn't had the steam behind it that the AFC Championship has personally, and I don't know. I guess that's a quarterback-related thing, perhaps.
Yeah, I would say definitely that's what it comes down to because everyone wants to see that marquee showdown. The thing that's interesting about that, we haven't heard a ton about it, but I've heard a ton of talking heads being like, these are the two best teams in the NFL. And I'm like, really? Now we're saying the two best teams in the NFL are coming from the NFC? It's odd that this take just randomly switched, it feels like, within the past week or so.
That's wrong.
Do what?
I think that's where that comes in, is they are the best rosters. And I would not disagree with that. I think that both the Eagles and the 49ers from, remove the quarterback, 2 through 53, they are better than Kansas City and Cincinnati. But when we get to that big game, the quarterback should kind of even things out a little more. You hope so for entertainment's sake.
No, yeah, I absolutely agree. Yeah, they are the better team all around, probably. But yeah, we've come to find out in the past recency of the league, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years for the most part, the better quarterback is usually the difference maker. And they can make up for a lot of these roster differences. And I think we're going to see a little bit of that happen here, regardless who comes out of the AFC. But yeah, it's very interesting, the storylines coming out of the NFC matchup. Because, you talked about the money going towards Cincinnati, people being high on the team that looked good the round before. And I think that's also a dangerous game when it comes to gambling. The public starts moving that way. And I assume that's happening with Philadelphia, regardless of them being the home team. But, they look good. They killed the Giants, Granted, we both know the Giants, they weren't really up to snuff. So I think it's one of those things. Maybe people are just like, they're hot on the team that's hot right now, or, the most recency bias. I think that's just how typical average Joe looks at these games.
The big story I'm looking at, okay, news is coming out that head coach of the Eagles, Nick Sirianni, big pizza guy. He's got some Italian in his blood. You can tell that with the last name. He said, before their last playoff game, while they were game planning for the Giants, he had stuffed crust Pizza Hut ordered in to the facility, and they munched on that, probably ate an entire large, no problem, as they pumped the midnight oil. This week, he converted to Little Caesars. And I got to tell you, man, I don't know why you would change it up. I get that Pizza Hut, the sauce, the cheese, it leaves a little bit to be desired. It's not necessarily one that you just keep coming back to. But how are you going to rock the boat and change it after what you just did to the Giants in that playoff game? You played a great, great football game start to finish, and now you switched it up to Caesars, who in our neck of the woods are notorious for having unsanitary conditions in their kitchen. So I'm a little worried about it from that perspective, and I'm not sure that he's not dicking with too many factors here that might lead to some bad juju.
No question. I wasn't aware of this story. Yeah, it's like a playoff beard. You're not going to shave it. Mike McCarthy, looking at you. You had a beard in the wild card round, did in the divisional. See what happens. So the only excuse, maybe Little Caesars came in and threw a ton of money at Nick Sirianni. Like, you know what? You should eat our pizza before the game. And like you said, I actually enjoy Little Caesars, but I have not been back since the unsanitary condition situation. And maybe that's what's going to play out on the field. It's going to be an unsanitary condition for the Philadelphia Eagles. They could be in trouble. I was not aware of this.
Hey, I actually think I just put it together here live. I haven't thought about this till now, but Little Caesars is the NFL pizza sponsor. And so would it shock me if the NFL front headquarters called and said, Sirianni, we need you to let them know that you ate Caesars this week because you're shitting on our sponsor here. That wouldn't surprise me, but nonetheless, obviously kidding. That's not going to play a role in this game.
I don't know. I wouldn't be so sure.
We probably won't know if so, but I believe this is going to be the most physical that when you watch at home, you're going to feel it. I mean, when you see some of these guys get hit in the ribs and the back and the head, you're going to feel it because it's going to come through so much force, so much aggression. These teams are very, very physical, and it starts with their offensive and defensive lines. If I was going through, I would say Philly, they have a top 3 offensive line. They have a top 3 defensive line, and they might both be number 1, which is scary. San Francisco, top 3 defensive line. O-line, I don't know. Top 5, top 10, but I think it falters a little bit relative to those other units. That's where this is going to be won. But it might be hard to really tell because I could see a little back and forth, right? I could see Philly having some good rushes on Brock Purdy, making him be that sporadic playmaker type that he's kind of shown himself to at least attempt to be. But then there's going to be times when it just doesn't really work out. The key, of course, is that run game. San Francisco, they are going to have to be able to be respectable running the football from start to finish. And if they are, you can take it to the bank. This thing's going down to the very end. And I do expect them to be able to do that. There's just so much talent. I mean, with McCaffrey and Debo and however they want to get that ball to these players. So that's where, I don't know. I would ask you, Matt, because the Eagles' run defense has gotten a lot better lately ever since they got some players back, including Jordan Davis, the big fella, first-round pick this year. Do you think the Niners can eclipse 150 rushing yards? Because to me, that's got to be like the goal, and really they may need to get it up much further if they want to win this game.
Look, I don't know for sure if they can get it done, but I think they have to get it done if they want to win this game. Because, I mean, like we said in the past few games, it doesn't look like you can put this whole game on Brock Purdy's shoulders. Has he done a great job for them? Absolutely. But, as we see them start playing better and better defenses, you're starting to see him struggle a little bit. Maybe the fairy tale is coming to an end. I don't know. They're going to have to figure out ways to dial up plays to Debo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, maybe these short yardage passes as well. But they're going to have to get creative, I feel like, to overcome this. Because, I mean, by far, in my opinion, I would imagine in yours, they are coming in last as far as it goes with the 4 quarterbacks that remain. So, yeah, I think they need to get it done. They need 150 yards, probably more, like you said.
Building on it, Philly is known, zone coverage defense. With that being said, they're going to have their eyes on Purdy quite a bit in the secondary at the second level. So that's where it's like, if you can't run the ball and make those Eagles linebackers respect that, their safeties respect that, then those passing windows could get very, very tight for a guy in Purdy who has already put the ball in harm's way 2 straight weeks, and he hasn't really felt the wrath of it yet. I don't even know if he has an interception yet off the top of my head. But in a game like this, 1 pick could very well be all it takes. The Eagles, as we shift over to that offensive side, they're just – and sure, the 49ers defense maybe ends up being the unit that makes them look human again. But I'm blown away by how Philly can do kind of whatever they want to against a lot of opponents. And it comes back to just the versatility. You've got one of the best receiver duos that can't be covered one-on-one, but you got to respect their offensive line. It's the best in the whole league. Can't just, leave a light box. Jalen multiplying as a runner, even though I think they're taming that back a little bit out of necessity. So my question there is going to be, do you think Jalen is going to look like the MVP candidate that he was most of the year? Or is it going to be more of I can see he's hurt. I can see that this isn't quite running full steam, the operation.
Yeah, that's a tricky question to answer, right? Because if we look back at the last game with the Giants, he looked great. He looked phenomenal. But like we said, the Giants, I don't think were up to snuff. They're not at the level the other teams were. So I don't know if what we're seeing was a little bit of, phoniness, perhaps, So I think we might see a little bit of a mid-tier, if that makes any sense at all. I think he's back close to healthy, but, he's going to be tested with one of the best defenses, if not the best defense. The real difference maker for him is he going to be able to play better than Dak Prescott did. Because at the end of the day, if Dak Prescott had played a little bit better, maybe 1 less interception, maybe few less bad throws, I think the Cowboys would be sitting in this position right now, and they'd be facing Philadelphia yet again for the 3rd time. So I think that's what it comes down to. It's going to come down to Jalen Hurts. Is he healthy enough? Is he good enough? Can he handle the big, big moments? Because we talked about that last week, but, it turns out the Giants weren't a real test. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know. I don't know what you got on it.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get into my pick here very, very soon. I mentioned at the beginning, I'm afraid we're not going to get to see especially the end of this game whenever get inside the stadium, and I doubt they're going to have it up on the board while they're trying to get the fans ready for their own game. But one way or another, I just really hope that we can sink into it, because I expect a back-and-forth brawl. I think both offenses probably give the ball away once at least, and then it maybe comes down to who does it that second time. Being at home, those freaking psychopaths in Philadelphia, that gives them the edge, in my opinion. It does. You don't have to travel. But these are 2 teams that have a little bit of long-term scars. Niners, they've been to the top of the mountain right there, one step away, didn't quite get it done, right? They lost in that Super Bowl last year. It doesn't even feel like it could have been a year ago. They were just in this game. They were in the NFC Championship and were beaten by the Rams by one score. Jimmy Garoppolo, he just couldn't put that drive together at the end of the game. So those players, man, they've been through this. And that's why I don't see any scenario where they get ran off the field because they want it. They know how painful it's been to come up short. But the Eagles too last year, they also had an embarrassing showing, quite frankly, in the playoffs, and they're totally different now. I am surprised that I'm doing this, but I promise you it comes from a place of data. I'm a data-driven guy. I don't just guess. I give educated, thoughtful predictions, and I've seen the 49ers in the last couple of years pack that run game, that defense up, travel, and find ways to win in situations when they're not necessarily supposed to. And somehow, some way, even if it means Lane Johnson has to go out because of his injury, even if it means that Jalen Hurts lands on that shoulder just wrong in the second quarter, I think the Niners are going to win and pull off the upset and go to the Super Bowl with Brock Purdy, warts and all that are there. I got the Niners winning. Amazing game coming up. 24-21.
I like it. You said something there that kind of got me thinking. Hypothetical here. I mean, this goes totally against what you just picked. But let's say Brock Purdy comes out 4 series straight. Nothing. 3 and outs. Maybe 1 first down here and there. Do we think about putting in Jimmy Garoppolo, the guy that's been there before time and time again?
No, I don't. I actually heard this brought up earlier today. And here's the thing. You can't do it because Eagles led the league in sacks. They've got a hellacious pass rush. That offensive line, if they are in pure drop back pass, hey, we know it's coming out type of scenario, you need somebody back there who can move around and make a first guy miss. Hassan Reddick had like 16, 17 sacks. He's very quick. Purdy is quick enough that maybe he gets away from him a time or two. Jimmy is not. And beyond that, he hasn't played in so long. I would hate for his first game action in well over a month to be against this Eagles front that, like I said, they're just like 8 deep on the line.
I got you. It'll be interesting to see how it develops. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen, but if it did, what a storyline that would be. Man, I was really torn on this pick, but I think just for argument's sake, I'm going to switch things up a little bit here. I think Philadelphia as a whole, better roster. We talked about earlier, the quarterback is a difference maker. I think that happens here. Jalen Hurts plays better ball than Brock Purdy. He gets it done despite playing the best defense in the league. But, like I said, Philadelphia has a great defense in their own right. They have better weapons. Okay, I take that back. They don't have better weapons. But A.J. Brown is as good as anybody on the field. That's the point I was trying to make. Give me the Eagles. They get it done. Nick Sirianni knows what the F he's doing. I will take them 27-24. Fly, Eagles, fly.
Going to be great. And you can catch that one on Fox. Fox, as usual, getting the NFC games. And they switch the times every year. It's easy to follow if you're engaged. So okay, this is the year Fox plays at 2 p.m. Central Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, blah, blah, blah. Then it shifts to CBS, Kansas City, as Nick Wright coined it, the Arrowhead Invitational, because the AFC Championship is being played in Arrowhead Stadium for the 5th straight year. All 5 of those years, Patrick Mahomes, the starting quarterback. And right now, this line, due to the betting public, has moved all the way from where it opened at the Chiefs favored by, I believe it was 2.5, was the first number I saw. They are now a 1.5 point underdog. I've seen in some places that number go all the way to 2.5. People are worried about the ankle, clearly. Beyond that, Bengals have beat them. Burrow has beaten them 3 times on 3 tries. So I don't think the Chiefs necessarily deserve to be favored. I really don't. I would probably say it's a pick 'em. But let people do with their money what they will. Matt, where are you at right now on this ankle thing? I don't know how close you've been following it, but if Mahomes normally is 100, what do you expect from him, and what do you think is going to look different if he is less than 100%?
Look, it's hard to say with high ankle and sprains. For the average athlete, it could be detrimental, right? Being a week out from the injury taking place, or a little bit over 8 days. But this isn't just your average everyday athlete, right? Mahomes has been able to excel in pretty much anything, and yeah, he may not look like the world's greatest physical specimen, but there's just something about this guy that's God given, and I think can overcome things like this. I don't know what percent that he might be at. I've heard some people speculate 60, some people 50. If you're Tony Romo, Jim, I don't know if he's going to play at all. I got to be honest. He's going to be on crutches Wednesday. I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to see 70, 80, 85% Mahomes. And to be frank, I think that's just about as good as anybody else in the league. As far as pure talent-wise, the only person I would put in that category is probably Josh Allen. Personally, that's for me. And he's not there. He's playing Joe Burrow. And so, yeah, I think we're going to see Mahomes. It's going to be a game that helps build his lore, right? This is the Michael Jordan flu game type thing. I think that's what's going to happen.
Really could be, because you think back to the Super Bowl with the Buccaneers. He did his part to overcome that toe injury. Yeah, you could tell it was bothering him and he couldn't run quite as fast as normal. But it's not like he didn't make some of the damnedest incomplete throws you ever saw in your life. The offensive line failed him. They didn't hold up their end of the deal. And so we don't remember that game like the Jordan flu game per se, but it is memorable. I don't know what percent he's going to be at. I would venture to say it's higher than the average person thinks, but I got a lot of thoughts here. First off, you said something in yesterday's show about how Dak Prescott, Mike McCarthy, neither one of them can make up for the other's shortcomings. Just the opposite in Kansas City, and this is why they have been in 5 straight AFC titles, is because when Mahomes isn't quite himself, Andy can help close those gaps. And usually what happens is if Andy and his defense or special teams, when those guys piss the bed a little bit, Mahomes makes up for that, right? So I expect Andy knowing ahead of time, unlike he did on Saturday when you just had to fix it on the fly. He can plan for this. He can put plays in the game plan that put him in position to hopefully not get hit a whole lot or reduce the amount of painful types of movements. He didn't look comfortable running from under center Saturday. We'll see. So that's one thing. But also, looking at the Bengals side of things, I pointed this out to someone I was talking to earlier today. Their defensive coordinator, notorious for being just completely unpredictable. I feel like what he does that other people don't do is he has 2 game plans every game. And it doesn't matter how good or bad the first half goes, he's going to stick to that plan and switch it at some point, just so the offensive coaches can never – they can't get ahead, You think, oh, man, we had a bad first half, but now we know the answers. Now we know what we need to do. And then the next half, nope, we're doing something totally different. Mahomes, I think this could play into his favor a little bit. Andy as well. Just make your game plan. If it needs to include plays that help keep Patrick healthy, fine. But worry about you. Don't spend all week trying to prepare for all the crazy things that Anarumo, the DC, could do. Just focus on you. Focus on putting those plays in that can be successful against a variety of different defenses. And you just go from there. Because what they've done the last 3 games hasn't necessarily – I won't say it hasn't worked. I mean, come on. They were leading in the fourth quarter in every single one of those ball games. But it didn't lead to a win. So it's not like, oh, shit, now they're the 3-0 team that now has a hurt quarterback. Quite the opposite. They're the underdog. And to just kind of put a bow on what I said, I do think there's evidence. I would love to know the science about it. So if you know this type of thing, give me a call. Why it seems like he does have a little bit of this gumbiness about him, where injuries like this, in a way, they might be a little more likely, but their impact is lesser. if that makes sense. Evidenced no better than when Tony Pollard had the same exact type of deal Sunday and he ends up breaking his leg. So, yeah, I feel like the kneecap thing, it's more likely that he has a sprain, but knock on wood, it doesn't necessarily have the disastrous outcome and he's able to bounce back. It's almost like those ligaments are rubber bands in there. That's something I've heard people say, and I think that's double jointed, right? Something like that going on. He has said he's double jointed before.
I hope that's absolutely right. I'd love to hear more about it. Maybe get the it's one of those millions of doctors that watch the NFL games and immediately make a post on YouTube after the game. Maybe they got some intel that we don't. Maybe they could talk to Pat, get some info. A point you just made, Brian, the Chiefs are the underdog in this game. I'm curious how this affects the Bengals, right? The whole underdog mentality, like nobody believes in us thing. The league doesn't respect us. They sold tickets to a neutral site game. That's kind of just been ingrained into their team, like branding almost. Like, we're the underdog. We're going to show them. Well, now they're not anymore. They're not. And they're going on the road. Let's see how do you think they're going to play being the upper hand, like people thinking they're the top dog, Joe Burrow being the greatest quarterback in the world.
It's a mixed conscience because Mixon, the running back, just a week or two ago was sitting at his locker telling the media, we're the top dogs of the AFC. We won the AFC last year, so it doesn't matter what anybody says, and they got to come through us. But then days before the game, they're going to spat off about, why are you selling tickets to this potential AFC championship game? They're going to come up with reasons to make themselves think that they are the underdog. And I think it comes to a breaking point. Like, what do you believe? Are you the underdog or not? Are you the top dog or not? In this case, for once, this postseason against an elite team, they are going to be the favorite. And I love that. I really do. I think a lot of people prefer, when you feel like you have an actual chance to win, you prefer to be flying a little bit more under the radar. The Chiefs, they have a history in the last few years of putting together some of their best performances when the national media is kind of fanning the flames and trying to put them down and basically give them something to prove. When you give Kansas City something to prove, and Mahomes especially, that's usually when you get their best. And so that'll be interesting. Flipping to the other side of the ball, though, last game, and that's something that should be noted too. I have seen people trying to cite the Week 13 matchup. I think you got to be – honestly, I think you got to throw it out. I know that sounds crazy. They just played a month ago, but let me just give you a few things that are different from that ball game that was 27-24 Bengals. One, the offensive line for the Bengals was fully healthy. At best, they'll have the left tackle and the right guard back, but they're not going to be their normal self. You got one guy playing on a dislocated kneecap and one guy playing on, I believe, a high ankle sprain of his own. So you can't expect big guys like that to come back and just be their best. At worst, they're all out again, and you've got three backups in. Kansas City side, Tony, he's became a game changer. He did not play. He adds a whole other element down inside the red zone. Of course, Joe Tooney, the all-pro left guard, you would think, big deal, just a left guard. But no, it is. He's an all-pro, and there were several plays in that game where pressure was surrendered that I just don't see Joe Tooney allowing. That's just a few things. I mean, beyond, hey, it's not in Cincinnati, it's in Arrowhead, it's at Kansas City. So we'll see. But, yeah, what are you thinking with that offense of the Bengals? Do you think that they're going to be able to kind of just have their way with the Chiefs defense like they did back a month ago?
I think they are going to have some success, but no, I don't think it's going to be the same game. I think the game against Buffalo, I think they were saved by the snow. And Buffalo was sliding. Their pass rush was obviously diminished without Von Miller. The thing is, though, I think that was able to keep the Bengals from being fully exposed. Now, the question is, can our DBs and safeties, can they keep up with the Bengals wide receivers and tight ends and their skills guys? That's a real question mark. The thing is, I think you're going to see a very, very motivated Chiefs defense. They've been playing well lately. They have. And, with the Mahomes injury, I think we're going to see even more motivation out of them. You're seeing Frank Clark turn it on, being playoff Frank. Man, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be as easy for them as it has been in the past for other games. I don't know what you think about the matter.
I hate to sound like a broken record, but once again, it's going to come down to the O-line, D-line matchup. Can Kansas City, unlike they have in the past 3 games against Burrow, can they get consistent pressure? Not even really consistent pressure. Can you just touch him? Because they didn't sack him once. I think they got a technical sack in the game earlier this year, but they did not have a true drop your ass in the pocket sack the entire game. Jones got held a lot, and it didn't get called. Whatever, that needs to change if that continues, but we'll see. They like to let him play in the playoffs. But, yeah, man, you go across the board. I mentioned it, the backups in Cincinnati. Can the Chiefs stop the run adequately enough to get in advantageous spots, right? Can you get in 2nd and 7, 3rd and 5? Beyond that, it really can start somewhat in the secondary because the Bills, they gave those Bengals receivers, who are better than any trio in all of football, all this space in the snow, right? And I think that's because you're afraid to get burned. It's hard to cut in the snow when you don't know where you're going. So they give them all this space because they're a soft zone team. The Chiefs will not do that. For one, soft zone was what they played most of the first game, and they got killed, and Burrow diced it up. So that's one reason. But for two, you're going to challenge that offensive line. You're going to get physical with the receivers, try to slow them down just a couple seconds, throw the timing off just a little bit, and make Burrow hold the ball a little bit longer. And that's where the defensive line, there's your chance. Beat the guy across from you who is, odds are, a backup or a severely hurt player. So for me, how they get Chris Jones lined up and matched up on guys is pivotal. It is make or break, might decide the whole thing. When we look back, it's like, oh, Jones made that play or two in the 4th quarter, or he didn't. And that's why either the Chiefs lose or win.
Yeah, that's what's an interesting part about Chris Jones. A lot of these big games, the Chiefs do win. The 4th quarter, he does kind of become a bit of a wrecker, right? He's starting to bat balls down. He gets a late sack. And, I think the rest of the D-line's going to have to take that on as well. Maybe we'll see some Karloff disappearances. You never know. I feel like he's been coming on the last bit of the season. And, I think it's going to be very, very interesting. Very.
Well, go ahead, Matt. I picked the NFC game first, so let me know what you think. Who's winning? What's the score? And I guess ultimately you're telling me who's going to play the Eagles in the Super Bowl.
Phenomenal matchup here. And look, it's no secret which way I lean, right? It's just not. I don't have the most warm things to say about Joe Burrow. Part of that being people considering him a style icon. I don't know. Have you seen that bucket hat? I'm not buying in on that. I'm not biting on that at all. Another thing about Joe Burrow, hot take right here. Clip it. TikTok. He's a glorified game manager. I'm just going to say it right now. And you know why people don't look at him that way? Branding. It's after the game he says these cocky things like, well, it comes down to the 2 best quarterbacks. I disagree. I disagree wholeheartedly. Is he a good quarterback? Sure. Is he Josh Allen? I don't think so. Is he the talent guy of Mahomes? No. Maybe a diminished Mahomes? Let's see how he compares to 70% Mahomes. Give me Kansas City. They get it done. They're motivated as ever. This is going to be a game for the legend and lore of Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid. The game plan is going to be phenomenal. Still going to be close, though. 30-27. Kansas City takes it home. Brian, what do you think, man?
Wow. I think that, for one, your Burrow thing stems from, he's got some of that Brady in him where he definitely rides the rest of the team a little harder than a lot of quarterbacks seem to have to do. His defense comes up with crazy plays like they did against the Ravens, and it's just like, damn, dude, you didn't even play that good. But, go ahead and move on to the next round. Last week was the first playoff game of his career that I felt like he just actually played great. The first one out of, I think it's been 6 now. So, for what that's worth. But I'm going to throw you a curveball that I'm going to probably generate some eye rolls. I'm probably going to generate some flexes wherever folks are listening. But I don't really. I'm curious how much the start of the game will impact this. You know, if the Bengals come out hot like they did in Buffalo, it might kind of flush this down the toilet and make it irrelevant. But I just think that this is going to be a chance that the Chiefs actually expose. They almost make up for what happened to Mahomes in the Super Bowl a couple years ago and show how important it is that you have that offensive line intact. I don't care what they did in a snowy game. I've seen Chiefs lines before run the football for 200 plus yards in bad conditions when they average 100 a game. So throw that out the window. I think their defensive line and their secondary, like I said, they get physical. They make Burrow hold that ball a little bit, and the Chiefs defensive line eats. I do. And the result is going to be a game that late in the fourth quarter, the score is 37-24. The Bengals score and make it look closer than it is. They score with like a minute and a half to go, right? So 37-24 turns into 37-31. Chiefs win. They kneel it out, go to the Super Bowl to play the Niners in a rematch. Which brings me to the last thing we're going to say real quick. Ranking your matchups 1 through 4. The Super Bowls you think will be the most entertaining. For me, I'm going to go Kansas City. I'm actually going to go Kansas City Eagles, even though that's not my prediction, because you got the Kelsey Bowl. They haven't played each other in a long time. Then Chiefs Niners. Then I'll go Bengals Eagles, followed by Bengals Niners.
You know, I hate to say it. I almost have to agree wholeheartedly on that. I'm going to mix it up just for argument's sake. Give me Chiefs and Niners, you know, because it'd be just fun to see that rematch again from 2020. But other than that, yeah, give me Chiefs Philly number 2, Bengals Eagles 3, and then that classic matchup Bengals Niners for 4, which personally I don't want to see that at all. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think we're pretty much on the same page here.
Right, yeah. If the Chiefs aren't in it, I'm once again going to have to strongly consider sitting it out altogether, but probably won't because we're going to be back talking about the Super Bowl next week, maybe the week after. You know, you got that big gap, 2-week gap between conference title and the big game. But until then, for Matt, myself, Bryan here, signing off. Make sure you're liking and sharing all of our shit at Worst to First NFL. Can't wait, man. We'll see how it goes, but it's going to be fun no matter what.
Absolutely, conference championship week. Let's go.